Strike the Killer Shot is the title of episode 40 of Digimon Adventure 2020, so let's not waste any time and dive straight into the review. The episode starts off with Sora and Tai playing football, or soccer for my American friends, which was nice to see as we know from the original anime that both Tai and Sora used to play football together. It's a little detail, but I still think it needs to be mentioned. Sora says Tai's crosses are usually so accurate, however in the original anime he was a striker, being the one to always score the goal. As a striker, you have to be selfish, because they're the ones putting the ball into the back of the net, which is the key difference between this Tai and the original Tai. The original Tai is headstrong and almost ruthless at times. Matt called him cold-blooded at one point during the Dark Master saga, whilst here, this Tai is more calm and easygoing. Enough episodes have gone by now and we are closing in on the final arc of the story, and even though the reboot is its own thing, it's still fun to me anyway to compare the original to the 2020 anime. Guys, comment down below which version of the characters do you prefer, the original or the 2020 versions, and do you like the changes that they have made from the 1999 version to the 2020 version? An island is dropping exotic fruits to where our heroes are at. The island even drops a fridge at them. The fridge is 100% a callback to the original anime, episode 7 to be more precise, where the team finds a fridge in the middle of the forest filled with nothing but eggs. But what I found interesting was that Tai and Sora are the ones going up on that island together. Remember back in the first arc of the 2020 anime, when the team was split into two, Tai, Mimi and Izzy in one team, Sora, Matt and Joe the other. Matt and Sora were arguing at the start, but then were learning more about each other and were getting quite close. The show has fully forgotten that now. Ever since then, Tai and Sora are always together exploring new islands and having crazy battles. Tai and Sora grew up together, so it's natural that they're comfortable with each other. But what we were seeing from Matt and Sora at the beginning, I thought we were going to see how they get close on screen in the 2020 anime, but it is what it is. I'm not into the shipping or anything, but I just couldn't help but notice how the show forgot about how Matt and Sora were slowly starting to get close from the first arc of this series. We see Phoenixmon being captured and taken away by the Flymon, with Toropiamon shooting the lasers from the top of the island. Toropiamon, who actually is the ultimate level of Phoenixmon. Phoenixmon itself is also a plant Digimon, despite it looking like Biomon. It is said to be filled with juices with as much sugar as a fruit, which could mean that the fruits being thrown from the island could have had the juices from Phoenixmon being contained in those fruits, which is what I thought, but then it turned out that Phoenixmon turned into the fruits themselves. Just before we get into the big fight with Metal Greymon and Birdramon versus Toropiamon and the Flymon, we get this small scene which highlights nostalgia for me as well as frustration with this show. We see Matt and Mimi having a small light-hearted argument about the differences between juice and mixed juice. Now Matt was actually a very good chef, because in the original we have seen him many times cook for others or teach people how to cook, such as Joe when both him and Joe were trapped in Digitamon's restaurant. So here, him arguing about Mimi on what is a juice, only a hot-tempered chef would make such a big deal about this. Now this is my frustration. As funny as this little scene was, this is still me making the assumption on the reason why Matt is making such a big deal about this. We still don't know anything about these characters. Episode 40 and we know nothing about them. There was a plot point with Izzy that the show forgot. He didn't want to talk about his home life, but the show completely forgot about that. I get that it's a show for kids, but this is insulting to kids. How comes when we were kids we still had heavy themes such as depression, as explained in my Matt is overrated video? Go check that video out if you haven't already. Or characters having to deal with the realization that they are adopted, like how Izzy felt back in the original. We still had a lot of stuff happening with each of the characters, and that's what made the characters more memorable and have more depth to them. Here we don't know anything, or the show will forget about them. Even though it's a show for kids, kids deserve better than a show forgetting its own plot points, like the ones I mentioned earlier. And there's still a bunch more I can go into, but maybe I can save that for a future video. Tai and Metal Greymon turn into fruits. I love how even as a fruit, Tai is still wearing goggles. I can't lie, that made me laugh. Look how massive Toropiamon is. His tail is bigger than Garudamon. We see something, a flashback. I know, crazy right? This was nice to see. Finally some backstory or even some information on the characters. This one was Tai and Sora playing football, which reminded Sora to not give up. And as we know, the Digidestined and their partner Digimon have an otherworldly connection. So when Sora says she's not going to give up, Garudamon immediately says the same thing. As we see Garudamon use Shadow Wing, but it looks like the Shadow Wing turns into a fiery shadow of a Phoenixmon, if I'm not mistaken. But comment down below if I'm seeing things or if you guys saw the same thing. I love how they ended Toropiamon with the combination of an assist from Tai and the army of Pomumon, with Sora's perfectly timed volley into Toropiamon's mouth, with Gigastorm and Shadow Wing fully killing off Toropiamon once and for all, bringing the episode back to full circle from the beginning of the episode when we saw Tai and Sora practicing to now by the end of the episode fully killing off an evil Digimon with their footballing abilities. This was such a fun episode to watch because we see some flashbacks and we see the payoff of that flashback towards the end of the episode. Sora was just awesome in this, just like how Joe was badass in the previous episode for his standalone character episode. Now, as a standalone episode, this was fun, but we are coming into the final arc of the show. Stuff needs to get serious now. We can't be having light-hearted episodes because the time for those episodes have gone now. What is Millenniumon's plan? And is he ever going to show his face in this series? He has to soon. What did you guys think of this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. As you guys know, we love having a conversation with you guys down in the comments. And as always, care for nothing.